The 20 Space Marine Legions, also known as the Legiones Astartes, were created by the Emperor to take part in the Great Crusade, in what was later known as the First Founding. All the Space Marines of a legion, called Battle Brothers amongst themselves, were modified with help of the DNA samples of a single Primarch. As a Primarch was found, he would receive the command of his respective legion. History. The Legiones Astartes were originally created by the Emperor and his gene rights in the closing days of the Unification Wars and the extinction of their predecessors, the Thunder Warriors. The new Astartes had superior lifespans and discipline to the Thunder Warriors, and were intended by the Emperor to spearhead his coming Great Crusade. Each of the 20 legions were created from a gene seed derived from a single Primarch, which were themselves maturing deep under the Himalayan mountains before they were stolen away from the forces of chaos. However, while the gene seed was created by the Emperor, it was perfected and mass-produced by the gene cults of Luna after they were pacified by the early Astartes. During the subsequent Great Crusade, the 20 Legiones Astartes were the tip of the Emperor's spear in his conquest of much of the galaxy. Gradually, the 20 lost Primarchs were reunified with their respective legion and led them to further glories, where they would begin to establish unique identities for themselves. However, some point during the Great Crusade, 2 of the legions were erased from all records for unknown reasons. Organization of a Space Marine Legion. In the Horus Heresy, 9 of the 18 remaining legions sided with Warmaster Horus against the Emperor. After the Battle of Terror, these fled into the Eye of Terror, where many fragmented into disparate war bands that continue to plague the Imperium to this day. The remaining Loyalist legions were broken up by Rubut Guilliman as per the new Codex Astartes. The Space Marine legions effectively ceased to exist after this act, succeeded by hundreds of new chapters. Organization. The Legio Astartes, being far larger than current Space Marine chapters, were organized along drastically different lines. At the head of the legion was its Primarch commander, who oversaw the legion's headquarters. Below this were the chapters of the legion, each of which was commanded by a chapter commander. Each chapter in turn was divided into a number of battalions, each of which was further divided into companies. The company itself, divided into a number of squads, was the basic military division of the Legio Astartes. Due to the varying sizes of each legion, there was no fixed number of how many chapters, battalions, companies, and squads a legion would contain. Original names and appearances. Originally, each legion was known simply by its number. For example, the Dark Angels were originally known as the First Legion, and had plain grey armor. However, upon rediscovering their Primarch, the legion would take his homeworld as their own, gain a name instead of just being known by their number, and change their power armor from grey to one consisting of a combination of battle honors and their Primarch's own tastes. The Emperor saw no problems with this development. The loyalty of the Primarchs to him was believed to be unshakable. This reasoning would be proven to be sadly mistaken, as half of the known legions revolted during the Horus Heresy. The legions were massive armies, and the size of each could vary tremendously. A precise number was never truly achieved and maintained. Even during the Great Crusade, some legions were very numerous, while others were not. The numbers would always vary with new recruits and inevitable battle losses, and also important was the availability of potential recruits and the administrative skills of the Primarch and his officers. The most numerous legion of all was the Ultramarines. The 1,000 Sons of Magnus were of a small number, as many of them had developed mutations or uncontrollable levels of psychic powers. Fulgrim samples had been largely lost, and this left the Legion of the Emperor's Children also with a very small number. Both of these legions would increase their numbers to acceptable standards only after their Primarchs were found. 2 unknown legions. While the 9 excommunicate traitoris legions are known to the Imperium as the traitor legions, of the 2nd and 11th legions no records remain, including of which side they took during the Horus Heresy. The history of the Dark Angels during the heresy is similarly known only to themselves, and possibly the Emperor. Therefore, excluding the role of the Dark Angels, there were at least 9, and as many as 11 legions who took the side of Horus. Recent writings have shown that the 2 unknown legions were lost prior to the heresy. They are referred to as the Forgotten and Purged. It is rumored by some members of the Word-Bearers Legion that the Astartes from one, if not both, of these unknown legions were inducted into the Ultramarines after their Primarchs were forgotten. An oath was sworn by the Primarchs to never speak the names of their 2 lost brothers. The loss of the 2nd and 11th sons grieved Lorga deeply. Second founding. The Loyalist legions were later reorganized by the Codex Astartes and broken up into several 1,000 Marine-strong chapters during the Second Founding. A single chapter kept the name, traditions, rituals, homeworld, and original identity of the Origin Legion, while the remaining chapters received a part of their legion's gene seed, new homeworlds, new names, and over time eventually developed their own traditions and identities. These chapters are known as successor chapters, a title which is not granted to chapters created during later foundings. The 9 original chapters, to a certain extent, are more highly thought of. These chapters are called First Founding Chapters, or something similar. There are some works of imperial literature dealing about the legions and the Second Founding. The known ones are as follows. The Mythos Angelica Mortis, which deals mainly with the Astartes Preses, but also provides information about the Dark Angels and its successor chapters. It reports that these chapters refer to themselves as the Unforgiven. The Apocrypha of Scaros and the Apocrypha of Davio. The first one tells us that there were 23 successor chapters of the Ultramarines, but fails to name them. The second source is able to provide 8 names of them. In the current age of the Imperium, nearly 3/5 of all chapters are descendants of the Ultramarines, either directly or indirectly through one of the Ultramarines' second founding chapters. Many records have been lost over time, consequently, there are many chapters which are unaware of which legion they ultimately descend from. The Grey Knights are an exception, as this chapter was created shortly before the second founding and its gene seed is of secret origin. Chaos Space Marine Legions. From a pure technical standpoint, the Chaos Space Marine Legions, also known as the Traitor Legions, are the only Space Marine legions still in existence. In reality, however, all of them have been broken up to some degree and now exist largely as separated individual warbands following rival Chaos champions. On occasion, a highly successful Chaos champion, such as Abaddon the Despoiler, is able to reunite these traitor legions once more and unleash them upon the galaxy. Thank you for listening to this entry from the Warhammer 40,000 Lexicanum.